All right, let's talk about something we all think about, our brains. And specifically, could the secret to a sharper mind actually be on your plate? Today, we're going to dig into that incredible connection, looking at everything from a simple daily treat to a nutrient that is absolutely vital for your cognitive health. So, let's jump right in. You know that feeling, right? That mid-afternoon slump hits, and you find yourself reaching for a piece of chocolate, just hoping for a quick pick-me-up. But what if there's more to it? I mean, what if that little treat isn't just about the sugar rush? What if it's actually helping you think more clearly? Well, that's exactly what we're going to look at first. We're diving into a pretty fascinating new study that put dark chocolate, of all things, to the test. So here's how they did it. Researchers took a group of middle-aged adults and gave them a really demanding mental test. But before they started, one group got to eat dark chocolate that was just packed with something called polyphenols. Now, these are just natural compounds you find in plants that act like antioxidants. The other group, they got chocolate with way, way less. And the big question was, could this one little ingredient make a real difference when the brain was getting tired and stressed out? And get this, the results were pretty striking. The group that ate the high polyphenol chocolate, they went on to a second, even more tiring task, and they kept their accuracy at an incredible 96.8%. Their performance just didn't slip, even under all that pressure. Now compare that to the other group, the ones with the low polyphenol chocolate. Their accuracy dipped. And look, I know 96.4% still sounds high, but that small drop is actually really significant when you're doing a tough, continuous task. It's a clear sign that their concentration was starting to fade. So the bottom line here, the science is pretty clear. The right kind of dark chocolate can seriously help you stay sharp and focused. Who knew? That afternoon treat might just be a legitimate productivity tool. Okay, so that's a cool little hack, right? A performance enhancer. But now we're going to pivot from that into something much, much more critical for our brains. I mean, getting a temporary edge from something like chocolate is one thing. But what happens when your brain is literally being starved of a fundamental building block it needs just to function? This is where the story shifts from, optimization to absolute necessity. And we're talking about vitamin B12. You might have heard of it. It's an essential micronutrient, which basically means our bodies can't make it on their own. We have to get it from our food, and it mostly comes from animal products. And here's the kicker. Not having enough is a critical risk factor for cognitive problems. But, and this is so important, it's also a fixable one. So how does B12 actually work inside our brains? Well, you can think of it as the master builder and maintenance crew for our entire nervous system. But before it can even get to work, B12 has to go on this really complex journey through our digestive system. It's not simple. First, it needs stomach acid to get released from the food, and then it has to grab onto these special proteins to get absorbed. It's this delicate, multi-step process, and if any single one of those steps fails, your body just can't get the B12 it so desperately needs. Okay, so assuming it makes that journey, once it's in your system, B12 is absolutely crucial for maintaining your central nervous system. And a huge part of its job is a process called myelination. You can basically think of this as your brain building and maintaining all of its own electrical wiring. So this myelin sheath, it's literally like the rubber insulation you see on an electrical wire. Its job is to protect the nerve fiber and allow those electrical signals, your thoughts, your memories, your movements, to travel super fast and efficiently. Without healthy myelin, your brain's entire communication network just starts to short circuit. And that is exactly what happens when you don't have enough B12. Your body just can't keep up with maintaining that myelin and it starts to break down. The nerve signals get all jumbled up, they slow down, and this is the direct cause of all those scary neurological symptoms we hear about with B12 deficiency. Things like confusion, memory loss, and even problems with walking and balance. So, naturally, this brings us to a really practical and, frankly, super important question. Who's most likely to be running low on this absolutely essential nutrient? And as we go through this list of high-risk groups, I want you to really think about whether any of these might apply to you or maybe someone you know, because this is way more common than most people think. All right, let's run through this. First up, vegetarians and vegans. This is a big one because remember, B12 is almost exclusively in animal foods. Then we have the elderly. As we get older, our bodies often produce less stomach acid, and that messes up that very first step of B12 absorption. If you have GI disorders like Crohn's, that can damage the exact part of your intestine where B12 gets absorbed. And believe it or not, some very common medications like metformin for diabetes or PPIs for acid reflux can interfere with the whole process over time. Okay, so let's move into our final section, and this is really where we turn all this information into an actual action plan for your brain. Because look, knowing the risks is one thing, but knowing what you can actually do about it, that's everything. Now, here's one of the biggest challenges with B12 deficiency. You'd think a simple, standard blood test would catch it, right? But that's not always the case. And here's why this is so scary. The neurological damage, that brain fog, the tingling in your hands and feet, the fatigue, that can start happening before the classic signs, like anemia, ever even show up on a blood test. This makes getting an early and, more importantly, an accurate diagnosis absolutely critical. And this is why comprehensive testing is so important. That standard V12 test can be really misleading. A true deficiency actually shows up in other markers in your blood. See, when B12 isn't doing its job right, other substances like homocysteine and something called MMA, they start to build up. And high levels of MMA, that is the single most reliable sign that your body isn't using B12 correctly, even if your B12 level in the blood looks perfectly normal. And honestly, if you take one thing away from this part, let it be this. This is not something you want to ignore or put off. The damage that a long-term B12 deficiency can cause can become permanent. The message from all the research is crystal clear. You have to catch it early and treat it. It's absolutely essential. So what can you do? Here's a simple 3-step action plan. Number 1, identify your risk. Just think about the factors we just talked about, your diet, your age, your health conditions. Number 2, if you think you're at risk, go talk to your doctor about getting comprehensive testing and make sure to ask about MMA and homocysteine levels. And number 3, if a deficiency is found, take action. The good news is this is a totally solvable problem with things like supplementation and regular monitoring. So when you boil it all down, it really comes to this. From the subtle boost you get from polyphenols in dark chocolate to the absolute necessity of vitamin B12, the link between what's on your plate and how you think is just undeniable. What you eat today is literally building the brain you'll have tomorrow. So the only question left is, are you feeding it what it truly needs, not just to survive, but to thrive?